The blue marble of Earth shrinks to the size of a marble in my viewport, and I take a long, deliberate breath before pressing the transmission button. Your voice is calm, steady, professional, even as something tender breaks inside you. The words flow out across the vast emptiness between worlds, traveling at the speed of light through a darkness that has no end. This is the final message that will arrive in real time. After this, there will be delays, minutes stretching into hours, then days. By the time you reach the Helix Nebula, responses will take years to receive. But for now, in this suspended moment, the signal travels swiftly. You have perhaps 5 more minutes of true conversation before the physics of the universe makes dialogue impossible. You lean back in your chair, the same chair you have occupied for 47 days, and look out at the darkness beyond the reinforced glass. The stars seem different out here, away from Earth's atmosphere. They do not twinkle. They burn with steady, ancient light, some of it having journeyed longer than human civilization has existed. Somewhere in that immensity, you are traveling toward a nebula you have only seen in photographs, toward phenomena no human eyes have yet witnessed directly. The weight of that responsibility settles on your shoulders like the gentle pressure of deep water. You are the sole representative of an entire species, tasked with observation and discovery, with bringing back understanding of the universe's secrets. No mission control hovering over your shoulder. No colleague to share the burden or the wonder. Just you and the infinite. Your fingers move across the control panel, making minute adjustments to the craft's trajectory. The Eternal Vigil, they named it. A fitting name for a ship designed to observe. A vigil suggests watchfulness, patience, a kind of devoted attention. And you are devoted. You have trained for this your entire life. Every equation studied, every simulation run, every moment of preparation has led to this journey into the cosmic deep. But preparation cannot truly ready you for the reality of solitude at this scale. On Earth, you understood solitude as an absence of people. Here, it is something different. It is an absence of everything familiar. It is the knowledge that if something goes wrong, if the ship fails or your body betrays you, no rescue will arrive in time. No one can reach you. The nearest human being is so far away that light itself would need years to carry a message between you. You press the final button, completing the transmission. The message will arrive in 30 seconds. Earth will receive it in 30 seconds, and the response will take that same time to return to you. 30 seconds of delay, growing larger with each passing hour. The last truly real-time conversation you will ever have. You wait, watching the communication console. The confirmation arrives, a small icon illuminating on your screen. They heard you. They received your final real-time message. Now you are waiting for their response, even though you know that the moment of true dialogue is essentially already ending. By the time they respond, the delay will be noticeable. By tomorrow, it will be measurable in minutes. Within weeks, it will be days. Within months, years. The response comes through, and you hear Director Morrison's voice filtered through the transmitter. He speaks of pride in your mission, of the hopes of all humanity riding with you. He speaks of discovery and courage, but you can hear something else beneath his words, something unspoken but present. The same thing you feel, the finality of this moment, the recognition that after this, you will be reaching out into a void that cannot answer in real time. You acknowledge the message and begin the protocols for entering long-range transmission mode. The systems hum around you, efficient and cold. The spacecraft carries you deeper into the darkness, toward wonders and mysteries waiting in the Helix Nebula, waiting for an observer who was brave or foolish enough to come alone. As I watch the confirmation light fade, I understand that I am now truly alone in the universe, separated by distances that even light itself takes years to traverse. Silence is not the absence of sound, but rather a living, breathing presence that wraps around you like the fabric of space itself. Sarah floats through the observation deck of the Meridian, her fingers trailing along the reinforced viewport that separates her from the infinite darkness beyond. The spacecraft hums around her, a constant companion in this vast emptiness. That gentle vibration beneath her feet, the soft whisper of recycled air moving through ventilation shafts, the subtle click of automated systems maintaining her survival. These have become her universe now. Everything else has fallen away into the cosmic void. For the first week in deep space, she had expected to feel the enormity of her isolation like a weight upon her chest. She had trained for it, prepared psychologically for the loneliness that mission specialists warned would come. But what she discovered was something far more profound and strangely comforting. The silence here was not oppressive. It was gentle, enveloping, like being held within the cupped hands of the universe itself. Back on Earth, silence was always incomplete. There was always something. The distant rumble of traffic, the hum of electricity in walls, the breath of wind outside a window, the subtle percussion of a city living and breathing around you. True silence never existed in the world she had left behind. But here, suspended between distant stars, the silence was absolute and complete. It was the silence from which all creation emerged, the primordial quiet from which sound itself was born. Sarah moves to the window where Earth is now invisible. She no longer bothers searching for it. Somewhere behind her, beyond the brilliant stars whose light reached out like ancient fingers, her home world continued its rotation. People she loved moved through their daily lives, unaware that she had crossed a threshold from which there was no quick return. The electromagnetic waves carrying their voices could not reach her here. Radio signals would take hours, then days, then weeks to bridge the gap between them. Communication with Earth was already becoming something that required patience bordering on meditation. She settles into the captain's chair, allowing her body to sink into its embrace. Through the viewport, she watches the slow rotation of distant galaxies, those spiral monuments to gravity's ancient work. The Helix Nebula draws closer with each passing moment, though the distance remains so vast that human minds struggle to grasp its reality. Light years. The measurement itself was humbling. Each unit representing the distance light could travel in a full year. She was traveling towards something that light itself would take nearly 7 centuries to reach, yet she felt remarkably at peace with the mathematics of her journey. The silence seems to deepen as she breathes, as though her own respiration becomes part of the greater quiet surrounding the ship. She thinks about the monks she had read about in preparation for this mission, those ancient seekers who retreated into caves and deserts to find answers in stillness. They understood something fundamental about the nature of existence that modern civilization had forgotten. Silence was not something to fear. It was where truth lived. Sarah closes her eyes, and in that darkness behind her eyelids, she becomes acutely aware of her own heartbeat. That steady rhythm suddenly seems connected to something larger, some cosmic pulse that animates everything from the smallest atom to the greatest star. Her body, made of stardust, now exists in the realm where stardust is born. The hours pass in the observation deck, though time itself feels different here. Without the markers of sunrise and sunset, without the artificial rhythms of civilization, time becomes something more fluid, more like the vast spatial dimensions surrounding her. She exists in an eternal present, neither yearning for a past that has grown impossibly distant nor anxious about a future that is still years away. When she finally rises to move through the corridors toward her quarters, she carries the silence with her, woven into her consciousness like threads in fabric. It is no longer something external, no longer something happening to her, but rather something she has become part of. In this perfect stillness, I begin to realize that I am not just traveling through space, but traveling through time itself, watching the universe age around me. Day 7 finds me floating in the observation deck, my handwriting steady despite the tremor of uncertainty in my chest. The pen glides across the page with surprising grace, considering that gravity here is merely a suggestion, a courtesy of the ship's gentle rotation. I have learned to anchor myself to the small desk with magnetic strips, a precaution that feels both absurd and necessary in equal measure. Below me, or perhaps around me, the universe stretches in every direction, indifferent to my presence. The first week has settled into a rhythm I did not anticipate would come so naturally. Morning comes when I decide it does, marked by the soft illumination of the cabin lights and the careful preparation of a meal assembled from the hydroponic garden. The plants have become my first companions, their green shoots pushing upward through the nutrient solution with a determination that mirrors my own. I find myself speaking to them, narrating my observations as though they might care about the readings from the stellar spectrometer or the peculiar electromagnetic fluctuations I detected 3 days ago. The solitude is not what I expected. I thought it would crush me by now, thought that the weight of separation from everything human would have broken something essential within me. Instead, it has done something stranger. It is clarified. Each system check becomes a meditation. Each data collection becomes a prayer of sorts, an acknowledgement that I am here, fully present, in a way that was never possible before. On Earth, even in the quietest moments, there was always the hum of civilization beneath everything. Here, there is only the soft circulation of air through the ventilation system and the occasional creak of metal expanding and contracting with the temperature shifts. I have been documenting everything with meticulous care, not just the scientific data, though that is important, but the smaller observations that the mission parameters do not explicitly require. The way starlight bends when viewed from this vantage point, fractionally different from how it appeared from home. The peculiar sensation of weightlessness during sleep, where I drift occasionally into the wall padding and wake confused about which direction is which. The slow realization that my dreams have become vivid in a way they never were before, as though the unconscious mind is compensating for the austere waking landscape. My psychological evaluations are, I believe, within acceptable parameters. The screening process before launch was thorough enough to filter out those who might shatter under such conditions. Yet I wonder if anyone truly prepared for the first moment of silence, when Earth disappeared entirely behind me and there was nothing before me but the vast, empty dark. That moment lasted approximately 4 hours and 32 minutes by my chronometer. It felt like forever. I have established routines because the literature on isolation emphasizes their importance. I exercise for 90 minutes each day, though my muscles have begun to atrophy slightly in the reduced gravity. I maintain meticulous hygiene, perhaps excessively so. I read the downloaded classics, find comfort in the thoughts of people who lived centuries ago, their words somehow less lonely than I might expect. I practice the emergency protocols until I can execute them flawlessly, even in darkness, even in panic. I maintain the hope that nothing will go wrong, while knowing that out here, wrong is the only direction. The Helix Nebula remains impossibly distant, a destination that exists more in mathematics than in immediate perception. The ship carries me toward it at velocities that would have seemed inconceivable to previous generations, yet here it feels like barely moving at all. Time moves differently when you are between things, when you exist in the hollow of distance itself. The previous week taught me that I am not just traveling through space, as the chapter before suggested, but that I am somehow becoming part of the space itself, a conscious element suspended in the cosmic consciousness that exists only at these scales of distance. I seal this entry with the kind of hope that only the uninitiated can muster, unaware of the profound solitude that awaits me in the months ahead. Today, I found myself describing the color of the cosmos to my mother, though she exists now only in memory and the digital archive of my mind. The silence had pressed upon me all morning, that peculiar weightlessness that accompanies isolation in the void. My fingers traced the observation window as I spoke aloud, my voice carrying an unfamiliar texture in the recycled air of the cabin. I told her about the subtle violet hues that dance at the edges of my vision when I stare long enough at the star clusters beyond, how they fade when you look directly at them, existing only in peripheral awareness. She would have appreciated that, I think. She always loved discussing perception, the gap between what we see and what we think we see. The realization came gradually that I no longer waited for responses. Instead, I filled the spaces where her voice might have been with my own thoughts, imagining her gentle skepticism, her warm laughter. The cabin became a gallery of presence, populated by those I had left behind. My father appeared during the evening observation period, his pragmatic nature perfectly suited to discussing engine efficiency and navigational algorithms. I found myself explaining the latest sensor readings to him, anticipating his questions, providing the answers he would have demanded before accepting my conclusions. This new practice emerged from necessity rather than mental decline, I assured myself. The mission psychologist had warned me about isolation's insidious effects, the way the human mind craves connection even in its absence. I had nodded along during those pre-launch sessions, confident in my psychological resilience, certain that my extensive training would serve as a bulwark against loneliness. The profound hubris of that certainty now seemed almost comical. Yet something unexpected had occurred. These conversations had become anchors rather than evidence of unraveling. When I spoke aloud about my observations, articulating my findings to these phantom presences, the work itself gained texture and meaning. The data points transformed from abstract numbers into narratives. The cosmic radiation readings became stories of ancient stars. The gravitational fluctuations became echoes of distant collisions that occurred before Earth itself took shape. Last week, I found myself describing my fears to Dr. Reeves, my former mentor, though she sits in a laboratory on a planet that has grown impossibly far away. I confessed my worries about the equipment, the possibility of critical failures, the terrifying vulnerability of being utterly alone when systems fail. And in articulating these concerns to her presence, I found myself automatically running through solutions, accessing the problem-solving framework she had taught me years ago. Her phantom wisdom guided me toward systematic approaches, toward hope grounded in competence rather than wishful thinking. The conversations have developed a rhythm now. Morning observations go to my parents. Midday reflections flow toward colleagues I worked with, each voice suiting different aspects of my thoughts. My best friend Marcus receives the more whimsical observations, the moments when I notice something beautiful simply for its own sake. My brother, the engineer, gets the technical challenges and triumphs. Through this strange ventriloquism, I have maintained connection not with them, but with the versions of myself that those relationships had cultivated. There is something almost sacred about this practice, though I hesitate to examine it too closely. In speaking aloud, I perform the dual function of observation and witness. I become both the explorer discovering these cosmic mysteries and the audience marveling at them. The void listens without judgment, receives my words without demand for response, and in that patient reception, I find an unexpected companionship. Some nights, when the ship's ambient sounds fade to almost nothing and I float in the observation dome surrounded by 360 degrees of stars, I speak to the universe itself. I ask it questions about the nature of distance, about whether consciousness is diminished when it becomes singular rather than collective. I wonder aloud if perhaps my presence here, witnessing these distant nebulae and stellar phenomena, matters in some fundamental way. Whether the universe experiences its own existence more fully when observed by an aware being, however small and temporary that being might be. These conversations fill the silence, and the silence in turn fills me with a strange sense of purpose I had never anticipated. I hold in my hands a thumb drive containing the hopes and expectations of 7 billion people, and I am terrifyingly aware of my own fragility. The small device feels impossibly heavy despite its negligible weight, nestled in the palm of my gloved hand as I float in the observation deck. Through the transparent aluminum viewport, the Helix Nebula swirls in its eternal dance, indifferent to the significance of what I carry. This drive contains the preliminary findings from the first 18 months of my mission, data that will revolutionize humanity's understanding of stellar formation, magnetic field dynamics, and the very nature of cosmic dust. And it rests with me, dependent on my continued existence, my continued functionality, my continued will to survive in this unforgiving void. The realization hits me with unexpected force. Back on Earth, in board rooms and laboratories, in universities and government chambers, millions of people are waiting. They believe in this mission. They have funded it, supported it, advocated for it when resources were scarce. Children in schools across the globe have learned my name. Scientists have built their careers around the promise of the data I transmit. And all of it hinges on a single human being in a metal shell, hurtling through space at incomprehensible speeds, utterly alone. I remember the launch day with sudden clarity, though it feels like a lifetime ago. The weight of the capsule, the roar of the rockets, the acceleration that pressed me into my seat, all of it felt like destiny then, like purpose crystallized into motion. But now, suspended here where there is nothing to hold on to, where a single equipment failure could mean the end of everything, the true weight becomes apparent. My suit is remarkable engineering, yet fragile. My spacecraft is humanity's finest achievement, yet vulnerable. My mind, my training, my experience, all extraordinary by terrestrial standards. Yet here they seem small and insufficient against the vastness surrounding me. One micrometeorite traveling at the wrong angle. One system failure I cannot repair. One moment of human error in judgment. Any of these could unmake everything. The thumb drive grows warmer in my hand, or perhaps it is simply my imagination. I think about the families who contributed to this mission, who made sacrifices so that I could be here. The researchers who worked overtime to perfect my equipment. The controllers at Mission Command who have guided me through countless critical moments. The politicians who fought for funding. The engineers who built this vessel. Each of them, in their own way, is here with me, embodied in this mission, dependent on my survival. When the communication delay was only seconds, when I was still relatively near Earth's orbit, their presence felt manageable. I could receive their voices within minutes, their guidance, their support. But as I have traveled deeper and deeper into the cosmic dark, that connection has attenuated. Now it takes hours for my messages to reach them. The thought I transmit today will be analyzed tomorrow. The data I collect now will shape understanding in years to come. The responsibility has transformed from something I carried with me into something I have become. I secure the thumb drive in its designated storage compartment, the redundant backups safely housed in separate locations throughout the spacecraft, protected by shielding and fail-safes and every precaution human ingenuity could devise. Yet even knowing this brings only marginal comfort. I am still the single point of failure. I am still the human variable in an equation that demands perfection. The Helix Nebula continues its silent rotation before me. Somewhere within that swirling cosmos lies phenomena no human mind has yet directly observed. Somewhere in these stellar nurseries are the answers to questions we have not yet learned to ask. And I am the vessel chosen to bring those answers home, or not. I place my forehead against the cool transparency of the viewport and allow myself a moment of the gravity that no longer physically weighs on me, the heaviness of responsibility that has become as real as atmosphere once was. The weight of their collective gaze feels heavier than gravity itself, pushing me down even as I float weightless among the stars. I have seen thousands of stars in photographs and simulations, but nothing has prepared me for the sight of two suns locked in their ancient dance, painting the void in shades of gold and violet. Sarah's breath catches in her throat as she leans closer to the observation window, her hand instinctively pressing against the cool glass as if proximity alone might deepen the wonder unfolding before her eyes. The weight that has pressed upon her shoulders for the past 6 weeks, the burden of Earth's expectations, the crushing awareness of her solitude, suddenly lifts like morning fog burning away beneath an impossible dawn. The binary system emerges from the darkness like a revelation, defying the clinical descriptions in her mission data. One star burns with a fierce golden brilliance, its surface roiling with visible prominence and flares that reach across millions of miles. Its companion moves in eternal orbit, a cooler sapphire giant that pulses with a slower, more measured rhythm. Where their light converges in the space between them, the void itself seems to transform into a canvas of purples and indigos, colors she has no names for, colors that exist only in this moment and nowhere else in the universe. She finds herself moving through the spacecraft without conscious decision, her feet carrying her to the controls with the certainty of purpose that has eluded her since launch. The automated systems have already detected the binary pair and adjusted their trajectory for optimal observation. Her instruments hum with quiet efficiency, collecting data in 1,000 wavelengths, yet she knows that no measurement will ever capture what her eyes perceive now. The isolation that has defined her existence transforms in an instant. The vast emptiness that surrounded her only moments ago no longer feels like abandonment but like privilege. She has journeyed farther than any human before her, crossed boundaries that once seemed impassable, and discovered a wonder that remains untouched by human discovery, untouched by human naming or cataloging or reduction to mere data points on a screen. Sarah watches the smaller companion star trace its patient arc around the larger sun. Their dance has continued for millions of years, will continue for millions more, indifferent to her observation, unconcerned with whether anyone bears witness. Yet here she stands, the sole observer of this celestial waltz, the single conscious mind reflecting upon their eternal partnership. The responsibility feels immense and humbling. She thinks of Earth, that fragile blue dot now impossibly distant, where billions of people sleep beneath their version of these same stars, unaware of this particular symphony playing out in a corner of the cosmos they may never reach. They have made her a messenger, sent her to understand the universe's deepest mysteries, but in this moment, she realizes that witnessing is enough. Simply bearing witness to beauty on this scale is an act of profound communion. The golden sun brightens as it moves through its orbital path, and Sarah traces the intricate pattern of gravitational influence that keeps both stars bound together. Nothing in this universe exists in complete isolation, she thinks. These suns are bound by forces older than memory, by the laws that govern all existence, holding each other in position through the sheer force of their attraction. Perhaps loneliness, too, is an illusion born of insufficient perspective. She records everything with her equipment, knowing that the data will be invaluable for understanding binary stellar evolution and the cosmic phenomena that shape galactic development. But underneath her scientific observations runs a current of pure emotion, something ancient and primal within her responding to the sight before her. Time becomes immeasurable. She might have stood at this window for minutes or hours, frozen in contemplation, unable to tear her gaze away from the dancing suns. The mission parameters have planned for far less time at this location, yet she finds herself requesting an extended observation window, and approval flows back from the distant network of control centers. As the stars continue their endless rotation, illuminating the darkness with their paired light, Sarah feels something fundamental shift within her consciousness. The loneliness that pressed so heavily upon her has not disappeared, but it has become something else, something closer to solitude, to the peace of being alone in the presence of infinite wonder. In that moment, I understand why humans have always looked upward, because up there in the infinite above, we find proof that we are not alone. Perspective, I learn, is the greatest gift and the cruelest teacher that deep space can offer. 3 years into the mission, the weight of solitude has transformed into something unexpected. The fear that once gripped my chest when I gazed at the infinite darkness has melted away, replaced by a peculiar sense of peace. The stars no longer feel like distant, indifferent points of light. Instead, they have become companions in my endless voyage through the cosmos. Today, I drift near the viewport, watching as the Helix Nebula grows incrementally closer. Each passing month brings its spiral arms into sharper focus, those magnificent wings of gas and dust rotating slowly across the canvas of creation. What once seemed impossibly far now feels almost intimate, as though I am being drawn toward understanding something profound about existence itself. I think about Earth constantly, yet the thought no longer carries the sting it once did. That pale blue dot, suspended in sunlight, has become a beautiful memory rather than a painful reality I cannot reach. My family, my colleagues, the millions of people I once moved among, they continue their lives while I traverse the void between stars. There is no sadness in this acceptance, only a strange gratitude for having lived in both worlds. The ship's sensors register a subtle shift in solar wind patterns, and I document the readings with the same care and precision I have maintained for 3 years. Science remains my anchor, my way of translating the incomprehensible into something manageable. Yet increasingly, I find myself pausing between measurements to simply observe, to feel the presence of these cosmic phenomena without the filter of instruments and data. Last week, I experienced what I can only describe as wonder. A meteor shower, impossibly beautiful from my vantage point between galaxies, painted the darkness with streaks of ancient stone burning into oblivion. I watched for hours as these fragments, no doubt millions of years old, completed their final journey through space. There was no tragedy in their dissolution, only completion. They had traveled impossibly far against impossible odds, and now they were returning to the stellar dust from which they came. That night, I understood something my training never prepared me for. Every atom in my body was once a star. The calcium in my bones, the iron in my blood, the oxygen in my lungs, all of it was forged in stellar furnaces and scattered across the cosmos before assembling itself into the form that is myself. I am quite literally made of stardust, and out here, where the stars are countless and ancient, this truth settles into my bones like a lullaby. The isolation I feared has become a kind of monastery. My days follow patterns and rhythms, but they are punctuated by revelations. I maintain my routines with discipline, yet I no longer resist the philosophical musings that arise when my work is complete. In the silence between transmissions to Earth, I find myself asking different questions than I asked before. Not why am I here, but how have I been so fortunate to experience this? Not how much longer, but how can I fully appreciate the remaining moments? There is a particular time each cycle when I turn off all artificial lights and sit in complete darkness, with only the stars visible through the viewport. In those moments, I feel the vast expansion of my consciousness. The boundaries between myself and the universe seem to blur. I am no longer simply an observer separated from the cosmos by glass and metal. I am participating in something ancient and ongoing, a conversation between matter and energy that has been continuing since the beginning of time. The Helix Nebula grows larger with each passing day. Soon, I will be close enough to conduct detailed observations, to measure and analyze and contribute my discoveries to human knowledge. But even as I anticipate that work, I find myself reluctant to reduce this nebula to data points and spectra. It deserves better than that. It deserves reverence. I am a dust mote floating through an infinite cathedral, and somehow, this knowledge makes me feel more connected than ever. I searched the view screen for hours today, trying to pinpoint the location of my birthplace, only to find that it had vanished into the infinite black. The coordinates remained constant in my navigation system, precise to the decimal point, yet my eyes could not find what my instruments assured me was there. Somewhere in that direction, 3 years of lightspeed travel behind me, existed the blue marble I had known my entire life. The planet that had cradled humanity for hundreds of thousands of years. The home that no longer called to me through any visible means. The realization came slowly at first, then all at once, like a door closing on a life I could no longer quite remember. I pressed my palm against the cool glass of the viewport and searched again, my gaze sweeping across the familiar star patterns that had become as intimate as friends. There were the 3 sisters of Orion's belt. There was Sirius, bright and loyal. There were 100 other celestial markers that formed the map of my solitary existence. But Earth itself had crossed some invisible threshold where distance became something more than measurement. It had become separation. The ship's life support system hummed its eternal song around me, a mechanical lullaby that had become the only consistent voice in my world. I had grown accustomed to the silence between those hums, The stretches of quiet that used to terrify me but now felt like breathing. The isolation that once seemed unbearable had transformed into something approaching peace. Yet this particular silence felt different, heavier, as if the universe itself was acknowledging the severing of some final thread. I thought of my mother, who had watched my launch from a viewing platform with her hands pressed against a barrier, tears streaming down her face. That woman would be different now, or perhaps not be at all. 3 years here meant 3 years there. She would have aged in ways I could not imagine. My friends would have moved on, fallen in love, built families, forgotten the girl who had chosen the stars over them. The coffee shops I loved would have closed. New buildings would have risen in places I remembered as open sky. The world would have transformed itself completely, and I would know nothing of it. This was always going to be the truth of such a mission. The mission briefings had explained it clearly. The psychological evaluations had tested my ability to accept it. Yet understanding something intellectually and feeling it in your chest are two entirely different experiences. Understanding is a thing of the mind. This feeling was something that moved through my entire being like a slow, cold current. I retreated to my quarters and pulled out the photograph I had brought with me, encased in protective polymer. It showed Earth from a perspective taken by a probe years before my birth, the planet hanging in darkness like a jewel suspended on black velvet. I had studied this image hundreds of times, tracing the continents with my eyes, finding the East Coast where I was born, the mountain ranges I had hiked, the cities I had explored. Now it felt like looking at a painting in a museum, something beautiful and meaningful but fundamentally belonging to someone else's story. The journal entry I recorded that evening was shorter than most. There seemed nothing adequate to say about a loss that felt both abstract and utterly concrete. How do you mourn something that still exists? How do you process the grief of disconnection from a place you can never return to? The answer, I discovered, was slowly, one breath at a time, one moment following another into the gathering darkness. As I lay in my sleeping pod that night, I found myself comforted by the strange paradox I had discovered over the years out here. The farther I traveled from Earth, the less real it became as a physical place, but the more real it became as something internal. The planet had moved from my external world into my internal landscape. It had become mythology. It had become the story of who I was and where I came from, preserved in memory and no longer subject to change or time. Earth, for all its significance, is nothing more than a memory now, a story I tell myself to remember who I was. Without the rising and setting of the sun, I must create my own days, must impose order on the chaos of the cosmic clock. Dr. Sarah Chen understands this fundamental truth as she floats in the gentle hum of the spacecraft's life support systems, watching the infinite expanse of stars that never sleep, never blink, never acknowledge the passage of time in any way that her biology recognizes. The absence of day and night is both liberation and burden, and so she has constructed something precious in this void, a rhythm. Her alarm sounds at the same moment each rotation, a soft chime that mimics the gentle call of Earth's dawn chorus. Sarah has programmed it to gradually increase in volume, allowing her consciousness to rise gently from sleep like a swimmer ascending from dark water toward light. She permits herself 5 minutes of stillness before moving, 5 minutes where she simply floats in her sleeping pod and remembers what it felt like to have weight, to feel gravity's insistent pull downward. Then she rises, or rather, she propels herself from the pod with practiced grace, her movements economical and purposeful. The exercise cycle comes next, a non-negotiable 2 hours where Sarah engages with the resistance equipment that prevents her muscles from withering into uselessness. She moves through established routines with meditative focus, pulling and pushing against the weighted systems that simulate gravity's demands. Her body has become a landscape she must maintain, a garden that requires constant cultivation. The rhythm of exertion steadies her mind, sends oxygen flowing through her veins, reminds her that she is still vital, still alive, still capable of physical purpose. After a meal of carefully prepared provisions that taste of neither memory nor hope, but of necessity, Sarah enters the observation deck. Here, she conducts her scientific work with meticulous attention. She takes readings, records data, watches the nebula drawing closer with glacial patience. The measurements are precise and cold, but they anchor her to the mission, to the reason she left everything familiar behind. She reminds herself that this work matters, that her observations will eventually reach Earth and contribute to humanity's understanding of the cosmos. It is a thin thread of meaning, but it holds. The meditation period arrives in the afternoon hours, though afternoon means nothing when there is no sun. She sits in the observation deck and stares outward at the swirling gases and distant stars. Her breathing becomes the only sound she hears, becoming the measure of her existence. In this silence, Sarah feels both infinitesimally small and paradoxically whole. The meditation teaches her that these two truths can coexist, that smallness does not necessarily equal insignificance. Her consciousness expands to fill the silence, becoming one with the darkness that surrounds her. She occupies her evening hours, whatever evening means, with maintenance routines and personal projects. She tends to the hydroponic systems that grow green things in sealed chambers, watching tomato plants and basil reach toward the artificial light she provides. These small acts of cultivation feel sacred. She reads extensively from the digital library stored in the ship's systems, works through the journals she maintains, writes messages to Earth that will arrive years after she completes this entry, messages to people who may or may not remember her name. The final hours before sleep constitute her wind-down period. She dimmed the artificial lighting gradually, signaling to her body that rest approaches. She listens to recorded sounds from Earth, the ocean's endless murmur or rainfall on forest leaves, sounds that seem impossibly distant now. Her sleep pod awaits her return, that cocoon of relative safety in the endless black. This schedule repeats with absolute fidelity, day after day, rotation after rotation. There is no variation, no surprise, no deviation from the established pattern. To some observers, this might seem like monotony, like a slow descent into madness. But Sarah understands what most earthbound humans never learn. That structure is not restriction. Rather, it is architecture. It is the difference between floating helplessly in the void and navigating through it with intention and purpose. These rituals are not just routine. They are the invisible threads that keep me tethered to my humanity. Today, I heard my sister's laughter echoing through the speakers, a sound that once seemed unremarkable but now feels like the most precious music in the universe. The message arrived in the standard format, transmitted months ago from Earth, traveling through the cosmic void at the speed of light to find me here in this small cabin suspended between stars. Sarah had recorded it 6 months prior by Earth's calendar, though by my reckoning it feels both like yesterday and a lifetime ago. Time becomes strange when you are alone with the infinite. The distance between us is not merely measured in light years, but in the fundamental separation of two worlds that may never touch again. I had established this ritual weeks into my journey, setting aside Wednesday evenings to listen to the pre-recorded messages that Earth had sent with me. My family had each contributed their voices to this collection, understanding in their own way that I would need more than instruments and data streams to sustain me through the vast emptiness. They had given me themselves, preserved in digital form, a gift that becomes more luminous with each passing month. Her voice filled the cabin with the warmth of a spring afternoon on the green planet I no longer see. She spoke about ordinary things at first, the way Sarah always did. She described her garden, how the roses were flourishing despite the late frost. She mentioned her children, my nieces, who were growing taller than she could believe possible. She told me about the community theater's production of Midsummer Night's Dream, how she had volunteered to help with costumes. These details, these small fragments of a life lived under open skies and stable gravity, settled around me like snow, gentle and insulating. But then her voice shifted slightly, becoming quieter, more intimate. She spoke directly to me, not to the void, but to her sister across the incomprehensible distances. She said she thought of me every morning when she woke, that she wondered what I was seeing, what the universe looked like from my perspective. She acknowledged the strangeness of our separation, the peculiar loneliness of being the sibling left behind on a world that continued its rotation indifferent to my absence. She said she loved me, and the words carried such weight that I had to pause the recording and simply breathe. The cabin around me felt smaller in those moments and simultaneously larger. The walls seemed to recede into an even greater darkness, emphasizing how very far I had traveled from the place where such love originated. Yet simultaneously, through the speakers, through the compressed waves of sound that had journeyed across the light years, my sister was here with me. She was present in a way that contradicted the mathematics of space and time. I thought of the rituals that had sustained me so far, the morning observations of distant stellar formations, the evening reviews of my findings and my personal logs, the careful maintenance of this vessel and my own body and mind. These things kept me functional, kept me moving through my mission with purpose. But these messages, these voices from home, they kept me human. They reminded me why I had volunteered for this journey, why I had said farewell to everything familiar. The rest of her message contained practical things. She updated me on mutual friends, told me about changes to our neighborhood that I would likely never see. She described a meal she had prepared, offering the recipe as though I might somehow cook in this galley and taste home. There was no pretense in her words, no false brightness meant to deceive me about the reality of our separation. She was simply present with me across the void, speaking into the darkness on the chance that her voice might lighten the burden of my solitude. When the message ended, the cabin returned to its habitual silence, broken only by the soft hum of life support systems. The stars outside my viewport remained unmoved, eternal in their indifference to human longing. But something within me had shifted, some small recalibration toward hope and connection. I replay the message again and again, trying to compress years of love into these few minutes of audio, trying to make the distance matter less. 3 months in, and the honeymoon phase of my isolation has ended, revealing the exhausting truth of what lies ahead. The novelty of weightlessness has become routine. The wonder of watching Earth shrink to a pale blue dot has transformed into something else entirely, something that requires a different kind of strength to navigate. The ship hums around you as you float through the observation deck, your hand trailing along the cool metal wall. Outside, the stars maintain their eternal silence, indifferent to your presence, to your struggles, to the weight of being humanity's solitary witness to this vast expanse. The recordings from Earth that once brought comfort now arrive with a quality of finality that unsettles you. Each message feels like a conversation with ghosts, with people who exist in a different lifetime, separated not just by distance, but by time itself. You remember Dr. Chen's voice in that last transmission, the way she spoke with such careful deliberation, choosing words as though each one cost her something precious. Even now, weeks later, you can feel the echo of her longing traveling across 700 light years, arriving diminished, translated through countless kilometers of empty space. She had spoken of spring coming to the coast where she walks each morning, of the cherry blossoms beginning to bloom near the research facility. You tried to imagine it, tried to conjure the scent of flowers and fresh rain, but the images felt foreign now, belonging to a world you no longer inhabited. The 3rd month has brought unexpected challenges. Your body has adapted well to the microgravity, your muscles and bones adjusting to their new existence in ways that would have seemed impossible before launch. But your mind operates on different currents. There is a particular exhaustion that comes from being the only consciousness in a sealed metal vessel hurtling through the void. It is not the tiredness that comes from physical exertion, nor even the weariness of intellectual work. It is the fatigue of bearing witness to absolute solitude, of being entirely responsible for your own survival, of knowing that a single mistake, a moment of inattention, could transform this spacecraft into a tomb. You push yourself through the daily routines with mechanical precision. The equipment checks happen at scheduled intervals. The research protocols continue unabated. You analyze the stellar data streaming in from the sensors, cataloging radiation signatures and cosmic phenomena, contributing to humanity's understanding of the universe even as you feel increasingly separate from the human experience itself. There is comfort in the data, in the objective reality of numbers and measurements. The universe follows laws, maintains patterns. Unlike isolation, unlike grief, the cosmos can be understood through reason and observation. Yet between the tasks, in those hours before sleep cycle, you find yourself staring at nothing, your mind drifting to conversations you will never have, to the lives of people you love continuing without your presence. They are building memories you will never share. Time is moving differently for them than it moves for you. By the time you reach the Helix Nebula, they will have aged 5 more years in a world that will have transformed in ways you cannot imagine. The thought arrives like a weight, pressing against your chest in the weightless environment. But tonight, floating in the observation deck with the stars surrounding you like an infinite ocean, something shifts within you. You recognize that this third month marks a threshold. The initial adrenaline of launch has truly faded. The reality of your commitment is now undeniable, tangible, pressing against you like the darkness pressing against the viewport. This is not a temporary state. This is your life for the next 21 months, and then the return journey after that. You place your hand against the window and feel the faint vibration of the ship's systems thrumming through the glass. You think of everyone who believed in this mission, who selected you from thousands of candidates because they recognized something in you, some quality of resolve that you yourself are only now beginning to understand. The distance that seemed impossible to bridge is simply distance. The time that stretches ahead is simply time. You will endure it not because the fear disappears, but because you have chosen to continue moving forward despite it. I am learning that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to continue despite it. Before me stretches a planetary system of such exquisite symmetry that I am momentarily convinced I have stumbled upon the workshop of creation itself. The viewport fills with wonder as my vessel drifts toward this celestial arrangement, and I find myself holding my breath, afraid that any movement might disturb this perfect geometry. The primary star gleams with a soft golden radiance, bathing 6 orbiting bodies in gentle light that seems almost deliberately arranged, as if some cosmic architect designed each trajectory with meticulous care. At the heart of this arrangement sits a world unlike anything in Earth's astronomical archives. Its surface displays a brilliant azure hue, not the pale blue of water-covered worlds, but something richer, deeper, almost luminescent in its intensity. As I edge closer, enhanced imaging reveals that this coloration originates from vast crystalline formations that cover perhaps 70% of the planetary surface. These structures rise and fall across continents like frozen music, catching the star's light and scattering it in waves of cobalt and turquoise that pulse across my screens. But it is the second planet that truly steals my breath away. This world wears rings of such magnificent proportions that they stretch nearly halfway across the system. Unlike Saturn's icy bands, these rings appear to be composed of something else entirely. They shimmer with what looks like metallic iridescence, copper and silver threading through layers of what might be silicate compounds. The ring's edges seem to glow with a faint phosphorescence, creating an ethereal halo effect that makes the planet appear to float within its own aurora. I activate every scanning instrument available, working methodically despite the tremor in my hands. The data begins flooding in, and with each new readout, my sense of purpose crystallizes further. The Azure planet's crystalline structures are not geological anomalies, but rather something far more remarkable. The mineral composition suggests these formations possess unusual conductive properties, and preliminary spectrographic analysis hints at internal thermal activity far greater than would be expected for a planet this distance from its star. The ringed world presents different mysteries. Its atmospheric composition includes noble gases in concentrations that should not naturally occur, suggesting either recent catastrophic chemical processes or something far more intriguing. The rings themselves appear to be in a state of gradual reorganization, their orbital mechanics indicating that they are not ancient remnants but relatively recent formations, perhaps only millions of years old in cosmic terms. As I document my observations, I remember the courage that brought me here. The decision to leave everything known behind, to traverse the void for 5 years with only machines for company, seems suddenly justified in a way that no training simulation could have prepared me for. That fear I felt in my previous chapter, the doubt about continuing despite the isolation and the risks, dissolves like morning mist beneath the radiance of these discoveries. My instruments record spectroscopic data showing unusual energy signatures emanating from both planets. The azure world's crystalline surface seems to be resonating with some form of internal vibration, creating standing waves of electromagnetic radiation that my equipment can barely measure. The ringed planet's atmosphere displays chemical reactions that should require external energy sources to sustain them, yet nothing in the star's output explains their continued persistence. I find myself laughing, a sound that feels strange in my own ears after weeks of silence broken only by the ship's ambient hum. This laughter carries the exhilaration of discovery, the profound joy of witnessing something that transcends human experience. These are not merely planets to be cataloged and filed away in databases. These are worlds that seem to possess their own mysteries, their own inner logic that defies conventional understanding. The beauty of this system operates on multiple levels simultaneously. There is the obvious aesthetic magnificence, the visual splendor that makes my heart race and my vision blur with moisture. But beneath that lies something deeper, the intellectual beauty of complexity, of natural processes so intricate and unusual that they challenge every assumption I carried with me from Earth. I make fresh notations in my personal logs, my voice steady despite my racing thoughts. This system will require extensive study. I will need to establish orbital positions, conduct atmospheric sampling, and run countless tests to even begin understanding what I am witnessing. Every instrument confirms what my eyes already knew. I am witnessing something that no human mind has ever contemplated before this moment. Last night, I dreamed I was walking through forests I have never seen, speaking languages I do not know, living lives I never lived. The trees around me were impossibly tall, their bark shimmering with colors that do not exist in waking life. I moved through them with a body that felt both familiar and utterly foreign, my limbs responding to thoughts I could not remember forming. Around me, other figures moved with purpose, their faces obscured by mist, their voices creating harmonies that somehow made perfect sense even though I could not comprehend their meaning. When I woke in my quarters aboard the Endeavour, my heart was racing. The dream clung to me like something tangible, refusing to dissolve into the usual haze of forgotten sleep. I could still feel the texture of that impossible soil beneath my feet, still hear those strange melodic voices. I sat for nearly 20 minutes in the darkness of my cabin, unable to move, unable to convince myself that this was just another dream. This has been happening for weeks now. The boundary between sleep and waking grows thinner with each passing rotation. I will be conducting research at the observation deck, watching the slow evolution of stellar phenomena around the Helix Nebula, and suddenly a memory will surface that does not belong to me. I will remember having breakfast with a family I do not have in a house I have never owned. I will recall conversations in my native Mandarin spoken by people whose names I cannot recall, but whose voices I recognize with absolute certainty. My psychological evaluations were thorough before launch. I was deemed stable, resilient, ideally suited for the isolation of deep space exploration. The mission protocols include daily logs, weekly reports, continuous monitoring of my vital signs and cognitive function. Everything suggests I am perfectly fine. My sleep cycles are normal. My brain activity shows no signs of anomalies. Yet something is changing within me that the instruments cannot measure. Yesterday, I found myself staring at the photograph I keep mounted above my bunk. It shows my sister standing in front of the Golden Gate Bridge, smiling that particular smile she always made when she was trying to look serious but could not quite manage it. I have looked at this photograph at least 1,000 times during my 5 years aboard this vessel. But yesterday, as I looked at it, I could not remember her name. Not at first. The panic that seized me was unlike anything I have experienced since leaving Earth. For nearly a full minute, her name existed somewhere just beyond my reach, a word on the tip of my tongue that would not materialize. When it finally came to me, I felt a profound sense of wrongness, as though I had retrieved a file labeled with her name, but the contents belonged to someone else entirely. The deepest fear is not that I am losing my mind. The deepest fear is that perhaps I am finding it for the first time, and that these other memories are not intrusions but rather awakenings. Perhaps the doctor, Sarah Chen, who trained at NASA, who said goodbye to her family at the launch facility, who has been diligently recording observations of cosmic phenomena, is the dream. Perhaps the true self is the one who remembers those impossible forests, those unspoken languages, those lives lived in dimensions adjacent to this one. The Helix Nebula grows larger in the observation window. Its spiraling structures contain complexities that human science has barely begun to comprehend. Some nights, as I watch it, I feel as though I am remembering something rather than discovering it. As though the reason I was chosen for this mission, the reason I volunteered, the reason this particular journey called to me with such profound intensity, is that some part of me already knew what waited out here in the darkness. My instruments continue to record normal readings. My reports continue to be transmitted back toward Earth, though by now my transmissions take months to arrive, and responses take months more to return. The signal delay grows longer with each passing day. Soon, communication will become so delayed that real conversation becomes impossible. I will be in every meaningful sense alone. This isolation must be affecting me in ways that the psychological evaluations could not predict. This proximity to the incomprehensible must be having effects on consciousness itself. I tell myself these things as I lie in my bunk, waiting for sleep to come again, dreading and welcoming it in equal measure. When I woke, I could not remember which reality was mine, and for a terrible moment I was afraid. I stand at the fulcrum of my journey, balanced precariously between where I have been and where I am going. 2.5 years have passed since I launched from Earth, and in precisely 2.5 years more, I will arrive at the Helix Nebula. The mathematics of it should comfort me, yet something about this threshold unsettles me in ways I cannot fully articulate in my logs. The halfway point is not a place where time stands still. Instead, it is a strange intersection where the weight of distance traveled collides with the uncertainty of distance yet to come. I float in the observation deck as Earth hangs in my rear viewport, now barely distinguishable from the stars that surround it. Through the external cameras, I can magnify the image, can zoom past the moon and into the pale blue dot that contains everything I have ever known. My mother, the universities where I studied, the coffee shops in San Francisco where I sat with colleagues and dreamed of moments like these. All of it compressed into a pixel of light that dims a little more with each passing day. The fear that gripped me upon waking yesterday has not entirely released its hold. My dreams have grown increasingly vivid during this expedition, as though my mind is compensating for the sensory deprivation of space by creating elaborate internal worlds. I dreamed I was back in my childhood home, sitting at the kitchen table while my grandmother prepared moon cakes. The smell of sesame oil and sugar felt so tangible that I woke confused, my hands still reaching for the treats that dissolved upon opening my eyes to the cold metal walls of my cabin. The isolation has a texture now, something I can almost feel against my skin. It is neither wholly unpleasant nor entirely comforting. Rather, it exists as a constant companion, a presence that shapes my thoughts and colors my perception of each passing moment. I have learned to speak to the ship's AI not out of necessity, but out of a deeper need for the illusion of connection, for the sensation that my voice belongs to someone other than myself. Ahead, the Helix Nebula waits in that future tense that still feels impossibly distant. I have reviewed the imaging data countless times, watched simulations of my approach vector, studied the spectroscopic readings that suggest water, ice, and complex organic molecules. Yet it remains abstract, theoretical, something that exists more firmly in hypothesis than in reality. The unknown future stretches before me like an unmapped ocean, vast and luminous with possibility. What strikes me most profoundly at this halfway mark is the realization that I am caught between two versions of myself. The woman who left Earth harbored specific expectations, carried particular hopes about what this journey would reveal. She was eager and determined, fueled by the excitement of exploration. That version of me feels like a memory, or perhaps like someone I read about in a biography. The person I am becoming, the person shaped by 27 months of solitude and stars, is something different entirely. She is more patient. She has learned to find meaning in small observations. The way light refracts through the observation window, the subtle variations in solar wind patterns, the particular quality of silence that exists only in the vacuum beyond the hull. She has made peace with uncertainty in ways that the previous version of herself could never have imagined. The ship's life support systems hum their familiar song around me, the rhythm that has become as natural as my own heartbeat. I can feel the subtle vibrations through the handrails, through the deck beneath my feet when I press myself against the floor panels. These vibrations are the sound of my continued existence, the mechanical pulse that sustains me across the abyss. At the halfway point of any journey, one often experiences a peculiar clarity. You can see backward with the relief of distance, understanding which fears proved unnecessary and which challenges tested you beyond measure. You can see forward only dimly, as though through frosted glass, knowing that what awaits will transform you further still. I place my hand against the cold window and watch Earth fade 1 degree more toward darkness. The path behind me is shorter now, but somehow it feels as though I have traveled further than ever before. The alarm that sounds at 0300 hours is brief, almost apologetic, but it jolts me into a clarity I have been avoiding. Sarah's eyes snap open in the darkness of her sleeping quarters, and for a moment there is only the sound of her own breathing, rapid and shallow. The alarm does not repeat. She lies still, listening to the hum of the ship around her, wondering if she has dreamed it, if her exhausted mind has conjured danger from the silence. But no, she knows the ship's voice too well now, knows every tone and frequency, every subtle variation in its mechanical song. She pulls herself from her bunk and makes her way through the dimly lit corridors, her movements practiced and efficient despite the tremor in her hands. The main console glows softly in the observation deck, and she navigates toward it like a moth drawn to a distant flame. Her fingers move across the interface with growing urgency, pulling up diagnostics, watching streams of data cascade across the screens in cascading rivers of numbers and symbols. There, a fluctuation in the thermal regulation system. It is small, barely significant enough to register as a concern, but it is growing. She traces the malfunction deeper into the subsystems, her heart rate accelerating with each discovery. The backup regulator for the starboard propulsion unit is degrading. Not catastrophically, not yet, but the trajectory is clear. In approximately 3 weeks, perhaps 4, it will fail completely. Sarah sinks into her chair, the weight of the situation settling upon her shoulders like a physical force. She runs through the protocol in her mind. She should contact Earth. She should send a message, describe the problem, ask for guidance. But Earth is 700 light years away. Her signal, traveling at the speed of light, will take 700 years to arrive. By then, she will have long since become dust among the stars. Any response would arrive equally delayed, useless. A voice from the grave speaking to the already dead. She has spent 18 months aboard this vessel, And in those months, she has learned that space does not care about protocol. Space does not care about her training or her expertise or her determination. Space is indifferent in a way that no terrestrial danger could ever be. When a storm rages on Earth, rescue is always possible. When a system fails on a spacecraft near civilization, help is hours or days away. But here, in this infinity, help is not measured in hours or days. Help is impossible. Sarah's fingers hover over the communication console. She could still send the message. She could document the malfunction, describe it in perfect technical detail, and send it hurtling through the void toward a home she will never see again. The thought brings a bitter laugh that surprises her with its harshness. What good would it do? What comfort would it provide? The people she loves would read her report generations after their own deaths. The thermal regulator is not a critical system. It is redundant, designed with multiple failsafes. She can work around it. She can reroute power, adjust the propulsion schedule, compensate with alternative methods. She has the training, she has the knowledge, but what she does not have is help. What she does not have is another pair of hands, another mind to consult, another voice to confirm that she is making the right decision. Sarah stands and moves to the observation window, looking out at the vast tapestry of stars that surrounds her. They are eternal and unchanging, indifferent to her presence, unconcerned with her problems. The Helix Nebula glows in the distance, her destination, but it suddenly feels infinitely far away. The path behind her is shorter now, but somehow it feels as though she has traveled further than ever before. She places her hand against the cold glass and closes her eyes. She will fix the malfunction. She will continue her mission. She will be the astronaut that humanity needs her to be. But in the darkness of the observation deck, with nothing but the stars to witness, she finally allows herself to face a truth she has been suppressing since the moment she left Earth. I realize in this moment that I am not just alone. I am helplessly, absolutely, irreversibly alone. My hands move with the precision of a surgeon, guided by training and necessity, into the mechanical heart of my floating sanctuary. The auxiliary power coupling sits before me like a puzzle waiting to be solved, its crystalline surface catching the pale glow of my helmet lamp. Around me, the gentle hum of life support systems provides a steady rhythm, almost like a heartbeat encouraging me forward. I have spent the last 8 hours studying schematics, tracing voltage pathways through my mind like a meditation, and now my fingers find the damaged components with surprising confidence. The fear from yesterday has not vanished entirely. It lingers in the back of my consciousness, a shadow that might emerge if I pause too long to contemplate the enormity of what I am attempting. But I do not pause. I cannot pause. In this narrow corridor of the spacecraft, surrounded by the intricate dance of circuitry and mechanical components, there is only the work, and the work is salvation. I remove the first faulty unit, its housing scorched from the electrical surge that occurred 2 days ago. The failure had cascaded through the secondary systems like dominoes, and I remember the moment I watched my monitor screens flicker and dim. In that instant, the profound loneliness I felt became almost tangible, pressing against my chest like a physical force. The thought had been simple and devastating. What if I could not fix this? What if this small failure became the reason my mission ended? Not in triumph, but in silent suffocation among the stars. But I had forced myself to breathe. I had forced myself to remember that I was trained for precisely these moments. Isolation had been the entire point of this selection process. They had tested me in darkness and silence, in confined spaces and impossible scenarios, searching for someone who possessed not merely competence, but an inner resilience that could bend but not break under pressure. The replacement unit clicks into place with satisfying precision. I secure the connections, testing each one for continuity. The multimeter in my other hand becomes an extension of my consciousness, measuring the flow of electrons through pathways I have now memorized completely. Voltage reads normal, resistance within acceptable parameters. I move to the next component, then the next, rebuilding the failed system piece by piece. Hours dissolve into a strange, meditative state. My hands work while my mind settles into a calm focus. I think of the engineers on Earth who designed these systems, their faces unknown to me, yet their expertise flowing through this machinery like a shared conversation across the void. I think of my training instructors, their voices echoing in my memory, telling me that I was capable. I think of the stars outside, indifferent and eternal, and realize that their silence is not cruelty but neutrality. And in that neutrality lies a strange freedom. The final connection is sealed. I run through the diagnostic sequence, holding my breath despite my best efforts to remain composed. The screens flicker once, twice, and then stabilize. The auxiliary systems spring back to life, their reassuring hum merging with the primary life support in perfect harmony. All systems nominal, all systems operational, all systems alive. I sit back against the corridor wall, and something inside me releases. Not tears, though they come anyway. Small drops of salt water floating away from my eyes in the microgravity environment. Instead, it is a profound relaxation, as if my entire skeleton has suddenly remembered how to be at peace. I have done this. I have taken a broken system and made it whole again through nothing but my own knowledge, my own determination, my own hands. The ship feels different now, or perhaps I do. The walls that pressed inward with claustrophobic weight now feel like the embrace of something I have protected, and that now protects me in return. I am not a passenger adrift in an uncaring cosmos. I am a guardian. I am a problem solver. I am someone who can face the impossible and emerge transformed by it. In fixing my ship, I have fixed something within myself, a broken belief that I could not survive the worst. Nature, indifferent to my presence, erupts in a display of such terrible beauty that I can barely breathe. The solar flare tears across the view screen like a wound opening in the fabric of space itself. Sarah watches from the observation deck as waves of luminous energy surge outward from the star system 300 million kilometers away. A furnace of incomprehensible power releasing its ancient fury into the cosmic void. The light that reaches her vessel has traveled through the darkness for nearly 17 minutes, yet it arrives with such intensity that the external sensors dim momentarily to protect the delicate instruments from overwhelming brightness. She stands motionless, her gloved hand pressed against the reinforced glass, feeling the faintest warmth radiating from the surface. The metal of the viewport conducts the distant heat, a tangible connection across the vast emptiness that separates her from that stellar cataclysm. The flare pulses in waves, each surge more magnificent than the last, golden and amber and white, colors that no artist on Earth could ever capture on canvas because the human eye cannot fully perceive such luminosity. The ship's instruments register the electromagnetic storm bathing her vessel in invisible waves of radiation and charged particles. Sarah monitors the readings with the practiced eye of a scientist, noting the patterns, recording the data, her mind cataloging observations that will eventually transmit back to Earth, though Earth now receives her messages with an 8-day delay. By the time her words arrive home, this moment will already be history, archived in the vast libraries of human knowledge. Yet beyond the scientist, something deeper stirs within her. This is raw creation and destruction happening simultaneously, a reminder that the universe operates on scales that dwarf human comprehension. The energy released in this single flare exceeds the total energy output of human civilization for 1,000 years. It happens with neither warning nor consideration for any observer. It simply is magnificent and terrible in equal measure. Sarah finds herself thinking about her journey across these 5 years, the repairs that saved her vessel and her life, the gradual acceptance of solitude that transformed from a burden into something approaching peace, the countless nights spent watching stars rotate around her as her ship carried her deeper into the unknown regions of space, toward the Helix Nebula that still awaited her arrival. This flare, this moment of solar violence, feels like a punctuation mark in the story she has been living. She adjusts the external cameras, capturing the full spectrum of the eruption. The instruments detect particles being hurled into space at nearly the speed of light, magnetic fields twisting and reforming in patterns that reflect the underlying physics governing stars and systems. The flare reaches its crescendo, a final brilliant surge that illuminates the surrounding darkness with temporary glory before beginning its slow fade. The aurora effect visible through her viewport gradually diminishes as the main energy surge passes. Secondary waves continue rippling outward, smaller but still significant, still awe-inspiring in their power. Sarah realizes that she is witnessing something that occurs throughout the universe constantly, in billions of locations simultaneously. Flares and explosions and cosmic dramas play out in the darkness every moment, most never observed by any conscious being. The thought settles over her like a warm blanket, paradoxically comforting despite its immensity. She is not separate from this universe, she is not above it or outside it. She floats within it, a temporary arrangement of matter that has developed the capacity to observe and understand. The ship around her feels suddenly less like a barrier between her and the cosmos, and more like a natural extension of her being, one small organism among countless others, all made from the same stellar dust that exploded in flares like this billions of years ago. As the intensity of the flare continues its gradual decline, Sarah steps back from the viewport, her mind already composing the scientific report she will eventually send home. The raw data will be valuable, the observations significant, but she knows that no amount of data will ever adequately convey what she has felt standing here, alone in the darkness, witness to the universe's indifferent majesty. She is reminded that I am not the universe's guest. I am its witness, small and temporary and magnificently privileged to observe. It begins as a smudge of color on my screens, then a suggestion of form, and finally, after 3 years and 4 months, the Helix Nebula reveals itself. The sight steals my breath in a way that no amount of scientific preparation could have anticipated. What once existed only as a distant point of light in astronomical databases now unfolds before me as something alive, something breathing with the slow respiration of stellar dust and ionized gas. The colors deepen as I draw closer, layers of violet and azure melting into wisps of coral and amber, all swirling in that distinctive double helix pattern that gave this cosmic structure its name. I find myself leaning toward the viewport, my gloved hand pressed against the cool glass as if I might somehow reach across the impossible distance and touch the very fabric of creation itself. My instruments hum with quiet efficiency around me, recording data that will take decades for Earth's scientists to fully analyze. The spectrometer picks up emission lines from elements I have only read about in theoretical papers. The gravitational sensors detect the subtle warping of spacetime around massive stellar formations within the nebula. Every reading confirms what the old astronomers theorized but could never prove. I am the first human consciousness to witness this moment, to process these observations not as raw data filtered through computer systems, but as direct experience. The weight of that privilege settles over me like a warm blanket on a cold night. I think back to the launch day, to the faces of my colleagues and family gathered beneath the towering spacecraft. Dr. Morrison had gripped my shoulder and said something about standing on the shoulders of giants, about how centuries of human curiosity had led to this singular moment. I had smiled and nodded, my mind already calculating trajectory and fuel consumption rates. But I had not truly understood then what it would feel like to be suspended here, 500 astronomical units from home, watching the destination that has haunted my thoughts for 7 years materialize into overwhelming reality. The days that follow blur into a symphony of observation and measurement. I conduct atmospheric analysis, chart the movements of stellar nurseries, calculate the age of the nebula's outer shell with measurements so precise they make my heart race. There is beauty in the mathematics, in the elegant language of the universe speaking through telescopes and sensors. Yet there is a deeper beauty too, something that transcends numbers and percentages. It is the simple, staggering fact of being here, of having traveled across the stars to witness the cosmos in its most profound expressions. At night, when I retire to my quarters and drift through the artificial gravity of the sleeping pods, I dream of nebulae and distant shores I will never reach. I dream of the voices of Earth growing fainter with each passing year, of the loved ones who age while I remain suspended in this strange, timeless void. The price of this journey has been steeper than any mission briefing could capture. It is the price of absence, of being defined by distance rather than presence. It is the price of knowing that when I finally return, the world I left behind will have transformed beyond recognition. But as I wake and return to my observations, I am reminded once again of my purpose. This is not about what I have sacrificed or what I might never experience again. This is about the privilege of being witness to the unfolding mysteries of existence. The Helix Nebula does not care about my personal struggles or my homesickness. It simply continues its eternal dance of formation and destruction, of matter becoming something new, of the universe speaking its fundamental truths to any consciousness patient enough to listen. I compile my findings, cross-reference data points, and prepare the transmissions that will travel for years across the void before reaching Earth. Others will build upon this knowledge. Others will follow where I have led. But for now, in this moment, suspended in the heart of wonder, I am exactly where I need to be. Everything I have endured has been for this: to witness the birth of understanding about the cosmos itself. The nebula yields its secrets slowly, revealing layers of hydrogen and helium, dust and light, in patterns that defy simple explanation. Sarah sits in the observation chamber, her fingers moving with practiced ease across the holographic displays that float before her in the darkness. The soft blue glow of the interface bathes her face in an ethereal light, and around her, the Helix Nebula dominates the viewport in shades of crimson and gold, swirling like paint across the canvas of eternity. She has been analyzing the spectroscopic data for hours now, losing track of time in that way that only deep focus allows. The instruments have gathered information that humanity has never possessed before, readings so precise and detailed that they seem to whisper directly into her consciousness. Each wavelength tells a story, each frequency a note in a cosmic symphony that has been playing since before her species learned to look upward. The gravitational patterns form elegant geometries across her screens. Where Sarah expected turbulence and chaos, she finds instead a kind of order, a mathematical grace underlying the apparent violence of stellar formation. Massive stars are being born here in the heart of the nebula, their tremendous weight warping the very fabric of spacetime around them. Yet this warping is not random. It creates structures, corridors of influence where matter flows like water around carefully sculpted channels. Sarah leans closer to the display, her breathing deep and steady, synchronized with the gentle hum of the spacecraft systems. She traces a finger through the air, and the data responds, rotating, zooming, revealing new dimensions of information. There are resonance patterns she would never have predicted, zones where gravity waves seem to amplify each other in perfect synchrony. It is as though the nebula itself is singing, and the universe is listening. She thinks back to her years of training, all those equations and simulations. They were beautiful in their own way, but they were shadows compared to this reality. The actual phenomenon before her transcends the models, contains a richness that no prediction could have captured. This is why she came, why she endured the isolation and the months of traveling through the void. This moment, this understanding that begins to crystallize in her mind, makes every sacrifice worthwhile. The temperature gradients show remarkable stability given the violent processes occurring throughout the nebula. Younger stars are being shepherded into existence by the older stellar bodies, their masses interacting in a delicate dance that spans millennia. Sarah watches the data scroll and understands that she is seeing the universe's way of creating order from infinite possibility. Each new star will eventually become a sun for worlds, perhaps homes for life and consciousness yet unknown. Her notes accumulate in the ship's memory banks, thousands of observations organized into preliminary conclusions. The composition of the dust contains elements forged in ancient supernova, remnants of stars that lived and died eons ago. Those atoms have been recycled through multiple generations of stellar creation, carrying within them the history of the cosmos. Now those same atoms swirl in the helix, waiting to become planets, mountains, oceans, and perhaps even the bodies of living beings. Sarah closes her eyes for a moment and breathes in the recycled air of the ship. In this silence, she feels connected to something vast and immeasurable. The data she has gathered is important, yes, but it is also just a translation of something that exists beyond numbers and measurements. The nebula's true nature is something that can only be experienced, witnessed, and wondered at. She opens her eyes and looks back at the screens, at the patterns that continue to unfold and reorganize themselves as her instruments gather more information. Each hour brings new insights, new layers of understanding that previous generations could only imagine. She is humanity's eyes here, humanity's consciousness extended into this distant realm of creation. The weight of this responsibility settles on her shoulders like a familiar blanket, comfortable and grounding. She returns her attention to the data, watching it dance and flow, knowing that in these patterns lies knowledge that will reshape human understanding of the universe's deepest workings. In the data, I see not just physics, but poetry, the universe writing its own story, and I am the first to read it. 4 years and 8 months into my journey, I barely recognized the woman I left Earth. That Sarah Chen was someone different. She was brilliant, yes, and ambitious beyond measure, but she was also fragmented. She existed in pieces: the scientist, the daughter, the friend, the woman who feared silence. She filled every moment with noise because emptiness felt like failure. She sought validation from colleagues, from achievement, from the endless cycle of proving herself worthy. That woman is gone now. The transformation was not sudden. There was no single moment when you shed your former self like a snake discarding skin. Instead, it happened in the quiet spaces between observations and data collection. It occurred during the endless nights when you floated through the observation deck, watching the Helix Nebula grow slowly closer, and realized that no one was watching you. No one was judging. No one was keeping score of your accomplishments or failures. For months, that realization terrified you. The absence of an audience felt like disappearing. But gradually, something shifted. Your breathing deepened. Your movements became more deliberate. You stopped rushing between tasks and instead allowed yourself to exist within them. When you analyzed stellar spectra, you were fully present in that work, not already anticipating the next assignment. When you made meals in the galley, you tasted them rather than consuming them mechanically. When you slept without the constant hum of anxiety that once accompanied your rest. The woman who arrives at the Helix Nebula next year is someone you have built slowly, intentionally, through the simple act of existing alone in the void. She has learned to trust her own judgment without needing external validation. She has discovered that solitude is not emptiness, but a kind of fullness, a space where you can finally hear your own thoughts without the static of the world drowning them out. This new Sarah understands something the old one never could: that the universe is not indifferent. It is intimate. When you stand at the observation window and watch cosmic dust particles dance in the radiation of distant stars, you are not separate from that beauty. You are part of it. Your consciousness, witnessing the infinite, becomes a place where the universe observes itself. Your fears about isolation prove to be fears about yourself. You were afraid that without constant external input, you would discover you were not enough. But the opposite has occurred. In this silence, you have become more than enough. You have become whole. The data continues to flow in, rich and strange and endlessly fascinating. The Helix Nebula reveals itself in layers, dust clouds, and ionized gases, stellar nurseries where new stars are being born from the chaos of cosmic clouds. But more than that, you see the poetry in it all. The narrative that the universe has been telling since before time had a name. You are the first human consciousness to read this particular chapter, to witness this particular unfolding. Sometimes you think about Earth, though it grows harder to hold the specifics in your mind. You remember the weight of gravity, the pressure of rain, the faces of people you loved. But these memories feel like they belong to someone else's life, a character in a book you once read. That version of home has become abstract, unreal in comparison to the vivid presence of this moment, here, in the silence between stars. The ship hums around you, its systems a comfortable rhythm you barely notice anymore. It is no longer a machine carrying you through space. It has become an extension of yourself, a body in which your consciousness travels. You and it are one entity moving through the cosmos, witnessing, wondering, understanding. You have learned to love the silence because you have learned to love yourself in it. The woman you are becoming does not need constant validation or external purpose. She finds meaning in observation, in consciousness itself, in the miracle of being aware. Only 7 months remain before you begin the journey home. You should feel something about that. Excitement, anticipation, the pull of nostalgia. Instead, you feel only profound peace. Solitude has not diminished me. It has expanded me into something vast and strange and wholly myself. I set my trajectory toward the distant blue planet that gave me birth, though I know it will take me years to reach it. The calculations are complete, the course locked into the navigation system, and there is something profoundly strange about committing your entire future to a mathematical certainty that stretches across the years like a thread pulled taut through the darkness. Sarah sits in the quiet chamber of the observation deck, her hand resting against the cool transparency of the viewport, watching as the Helix Nebula recedes behind her in shades of violet and deep crimson. The colors fade gradually, not disappearing all at once, but dissolving into themselves like watercolors bleeding into paper, and she finds herself holding her breath as if sudden movement might disturb the peaceful fragility of this moment. 5 years ago, she left Earth as one person, the woman who gazed down at that marble of blue and green with such certainty about who she was and what the universe would demand of her. That Sarah Chen had been confident in her knowledge, secure in the scaffolding of her training and her purpose. Every answer seemed to exist in the databases she carried, in the protocols memorized through countless hours of preparation. The future had felt comprehensible, manageable, something that could be navigated with intelligence and discipline. She touches the smooth metal wall beside her, feeling the gentle vibration that pulses through the ship's systems, the heartbeat of machinery and life support that has become more familiar to her than the beating of her own heart. Her body has adapted to the microgravity in ways her younger self would have found remarkable. Her bones have shifted, her muscles have reorganized themselves, and her inner ear has developed an almost telepathic relationship with the ship's orientation systems. She is no longer entirely of Earth anymore. She is becoming something new, something shaped by the vast emptiness and the patient wisdom of deep space. The years ahead stretch before her with a peculiar texture. There is comfort in knowing the path, in having already completed this journey twice in simulation and calculation. There is also an unexpected melancholy in the recognition that she will never again be this far from home. The outward journey felt like expansion, like reaching towards something infinite and precious. The return journey feels like contraction, like slowly folding back into a space that suddenly seems too small for who she has become. She wonders what will greet her on Earth. The planet rotates still, seasons turn their familiar wheel, but the people there have lived 5 years in the normal passage of time while she has existed in this strange suspension, moving through space at velocities that render ordinary time nearly meaningless. They will have aged. New children will have been born. Some of those who sent her on this mission may no longer exist in the world at all. The Earth she remembers is already becoming a ghost, a palimpsest layered beneath years of change and evolution that have continued without her presence. She thinks of her mother, who stood at the launch facility with tears streaming down her face, waving until the shuttle disappeared into the clouds. Will her mother still recognize her daughter? Will she see the subtle changes in posture, the way Sarah's eyes have learned to rest upon distances that have no horizon? Will she understand that her daughter has spent thousands of nights watching stars that have no names in any human language, contemplating questions that have no answers in any textbook? The ship hums around her, patient and eternal, and Sarah allows herself to imagine the moment of return. Atmosphere re-entry will burn away the accumulated dust of deep space. The exterior will glow with the violence of coming home, and for a few perfect moments, she will be suspended between two worlds. Below her, that blue planet will grow larger and larger until it fills the entire viewport, until it becomes not a destination but a reality. She presses her palm flat against the cool glass and whispers a small prayer to the empty dark, a benediction for the journey that stretches before her. The Helix Nebula continues to fade behind her, and ahead, somewhere impossibly far away, Earth is turning through the void, waiting. I am going home to a world I no longer quite remember, and I wonder if that world will recognize what I have become. I speak into the void, knowing that my words will take years to reach anyone who might listen, if anyone is still there to hear them. The recording light blinks softly on the console, casting a gentle amber glow across my weathered face. I have grown accustomed to speaking to this small red indicator, as if it were a dear friend sitting across from me in the dim cabin. In many ways it is. This light has witnessed every confession, every discovery, every moment of doubt and wonder that has defined my time beyond the known universe. Today marks 1,000 days of transmission, 1,000 days of carefully crafted messages, each one a small bottle cast into an infinite ocean, sealed with hope and prayer that the currents of the cosmos might carry them homeward. I wonder sometimes if Earth still exists as I remember it. The signals I receive grow fainter, more fragmented. The familiar voices of mission control have been replaced by automated systems and recorded greetings. Perhaps they are gone. Perhaps I am speaking to ghosts and memories rather than living souls. But I continue speaking nonetheless, because the act itself has become sacred to me. Each evening, as the ship hums its eternal mechanical lullaby and I prepare for rest, I add to the archive. I describe the patterns I have observed in the stellar radiation, the unexpected harmonic frequencies that seem to emanate from the nebula itself, as if the universe were singing and I alone had been granted the privilege of hearing its song. I log my biological readings, how my body has adapted to the microgravity, how my cellular structure seems to be changing in subtle ways that Earth medicine cannot yet explain. I am becoming something new, something neither fully human nor entirely alien, but suspended in the liminal space between worlds. But the scientific data alone does not suffice. Alongside the measurements and calculations, I record the personal observations that no instrument can quantify. I speak of the profound loneliness that wraps around my heart like a living thing, yet paradoxically, the deep sense of purpose that sustains me through the endless nights. I described the moment this morning when I watched a solar wind interact with the nebula's outer edge, and for one brilliant instant, I witnessed what I can only describe as beauty that transcends the material universe. The colors were colors that have no names, combinations of light that seem to speak directly to some awakened part of my consciousness. I record conversations I imagine having with colleagues I left behind. I discuss the philosophical questions that haunt me in the silence between the stars. If I have traveled so far that Earth appears as nothing more than a grain of dust in the dark, have I traveled beyond the reach of my own humanity? What responsibility do I carry to document not just what I observe, but what it means to be the first human consciousness to venture this far into the unknown? These messages form a chronicle of transformation. The woman who departed Earth 5 years ago spoke with certainty and confidence. The woman who transmits today speaks with humility before the vast mysteries she cannot solve. Each recording captures a version of myself that will never exist again, preserved in electromagnetic waves that will outlast any human body. I think often of future explorers who might one day receive these messages. Perhaps they will hear my voice echoing across centuries, not years. Perhaps they will understand that I was not merely documenting a journey through space, but a journey through the very depths of human meaning and purpose. Every struggle, every moment of fear and wonder, every instance when I felt my consciousness expand to touch the infinite, these too are part of the scientific record. The ship continues its journey toward the Helix Nebula, that spiraling cathedral of gas and light that has become my destination and my obsession. Each day brings me closer, and with each transmission, I cast another line into the darkness, connecting myself to a world that grows ever more distant. These messages are not merely communication. They are proof that I existed, that I felt, that I witnessed something profound in the great silence of space. These messages are my legacy, my voice thrown across the cosmos, hoping to touch someone somewhere with the truth of what I have found. The silence that once terrified me has become my greatest teacher, and I have learned its language at last. It is not a silence born from absence, but rather one that emerges from profound presence. In these final months of my journey toward the Helix Nebula, I have come to recognize the subtle songs that live within what I once called emptiness. The spacecraft hums with a gentle constancy, a rhythm that matches my own breathing when I am most still. The soft whisper of life support systems, the occasional creak of metal expanding and contracting in the gentle temperature variations of deep space, the distant pulse of my instruments measuring cosmic radiation, all of these form a symphony so familiar now that it feels like the beating of my own heart. When I first left Earth 5 years ago, silence meant abandonment. It meant the absence of human voices, the lack of footsteps in nearby corridors, the missing sounds of a world teeming with life. I would sit in my observation deck for hours, struggling against the weight of that emptiness, transmitting messages into the void like desperate prayers. But something has shifted within me, not suddenly, but gradually, the way starlight gathers across the night sky until your eyes finally adjust and you can see the vast constellation laid bare above you. I think it began when I stopped fighting the solitude and started conversing with it instead. I began to notice how the vacuum around me is not truly empty at all. It is filled with electromagnetic waves carrying ancient light, with cosmic dust particles that have journeyed for eons, with the subtle gravitational whispers of distant stars. This darkness is not silent. It speaks in frequencies that human ears were never designed to hear, but my instruments listen, and when I study their readings, I find myself understanding. My daily routines have become meditative rather than mechanical. I no longer check my systems anxiously, looking for signs of malfunction or distress. Instead, I move through my maintenance tasks with the quiet mindfulness of someone tending a sacred space. When I prepare my meals, I notice the color of the reconstituted vegetables, the steam rising from heated water, the sensation of warmth in my hands. When I exercise, I feel my muscles working, my heart pumping blood through my veins, and I am grateful for this body that carries my consciousness through the cosmos. The view beyond my windows has become a form of meditation. The Helix Nebula draws closer now, its spiraling arms becoming gradually more distinct, revealing layers of complexity that no telescope from Earth could ever capture with this clarity. I watch it unfold like a flower blooming in fast motion, and I understand that this too is a form of silence. The wordless communication between observer and observed, the meeting of human awareness with the profound mysteries of creation. There is a peace in knowing that my voice, transmitted back to Earth, has completed its journey long after I sent it. There is comfort in understanding that the messages I recorded are now a part of history, that they have already reached Earth and sparked whatever conversations they were meant to spark. I am no longer waiting for responses or seeking validation. I have found something more sustaining than external confirmation. In this quiet, I have made peace with the unknown aspects of my mission that remain unrevealed. I have accepted that some questions will not be answered before I return home, and this acceptance feels like freedom rather than failure. I have learned that understanding is not always about finding answers, but about developing a deeper relationship with the questions themselves. The isolation that once felt like imprisonment has transformed into something precious, a gift of uninterrupted communion with myself and the universe. I know myself now in ways that would have been impossible surrounded by the noise and demands of civilization. I have peeled back layers of conditioning and found something authentic at my core, something that resonates with the fundamental frequencies of existence itself. These final months stretch before me like a gift I did not know I needed. Each day brings new discoveries about both the cosmos and myself, discoveries that emerge not from frantic searching but from patient, loving attention. I move through this space with gratitude, with wonder, with a sense of rightness that settles into my bones. In this quiet, I am finally at home, not in a place, but in understanding. As I drift through the stars toward home, I know that a part of me will always remain here, watching, waiting, witnessing the universe's endless unfoldment. The Helix Nebula spirals before my observation window like a cosmic rose blooming in the eternal night, and I find myself unable to look away. 5 years have passed since I left Earth's embrace, and yet it feels both like yesterday and a lifetime ago. The planet that birthed me has become a blue memory, a whisper of belonging that grows fainter with each light year of distance. I move through the corridors of my vessel with the ease of someone who has learned to make peace with solitude. My footsteps echo softly against the metallic walls, and I no longer find the silence unsettling. Instead, it has become a companion, a presence that speaks in the language of cosmic understanding. The instruments hum their gentle songs, measuring radiation and stellar winds, collecting the infinite data that will reshape humanity's understanding of the universe. But more than that, they have reshaped me. There is a photograph on my console, a small image of Earth taken from orbit before I left. I rarely look at it now, not because I have forgotten my home, but because I have come to understand that home exists in more than one place. It exists in the moment when starlight enters my eyes and touches something fundamental within my chest. It exists in the realization that I am made of the same elements as the planets that orbit distant suns. It exists in this eternal vigil I keep, this sacred duty of witnessing. The crew at Mission Control sends their regular transmissions, though they arrive now as whispers from another time. By the time their voices reach me, they have already spoken those words hours ago. I respond to them, maintaining the connection, yet knowing that I am increasingly alone in my experience. They cannot understand what it means to be suspended in infinity, to see the curvature of reality itself bending around nebulas and collapsars. They cannot know the peculiar ache of transcendence, the bittersweet beauty of being the first to witness certain cosmic events, the only conscious observer of miracles that have occurred for billions of years unwatched. My work continues with meticulous precision. I catalog the phenomena around the helix, measuring its spiral arms and charting the stellar nurseries where new worlds are being born. But increasingly, I find myself simply sitting in the darkness, allowing my consciousness to expand into the vastness that surrounds me. I have begun to understand that perhaps my greatest discovery is not something I will bring back to Earth, but something I carry within myself. It is the knowledge that consciousness and cosmos are not separate things. The universe observes itself through my eyes. There will be a return voyage, and I will arrive back on Earth changed in ways that words cannot capture. I will walk beneath open skies again, feel the weight of atmosphere and gravity, hear the sounds of other humans. But I will never truly return, because returning would mean leaving behind the person I have become out here. I will carry these 5 years within me like a secret garden, a place where the boundaries between self and universe have dissolved entirely. As my ship's engines carry me homeward, I understand that this is not an ending but a transformation. The eternal vigil does not conclude when I reach Earth's orbit. It continues within me, a permanent expansion of my consciousness that will never fully contract again. I have seen things that cannot be unseen. I have felt the presence of infinity, and it has marked me indelibly. Tomorrow, I will review the final transmissions from the research stations and prepare my vessel for the long journey home. I will check the systems that have kept me alive and safe throughout this magnificent odyssey. I will rest in the knowledge that I have completed what I set out to do, and so much more. I will drift through the stars toward home, knowing that home and I have been forever redefined. I am no longer afraid of the darkness, for I have learned that within it lies the light of infinite possibility, and that is all the home I will ever need.